The transport ship touched down on Kethros 4, just as the twin suns began to set. Lieutenant Yu Xiaoyan stepped off the ramp and took her first breath of alien air. It smelled like copper and rain. Around her, dozens of cadets from across the galaxy were arriving for the same reason. They had all been chosen for the Unified Galactic Military Academy's Command Track program. The most elite training in known space. Xiaoyan was the first human ever selected. She stood at 5'4". Her black hair was tied back in a simple knot. She carried one bag over her shoulder. Compared to the massive creatures walking past her, she looked like a child who had wandered into the wrong place. A Vraxian cadet stomped by. He stood nearly 8 feet tall, with thick gray skin and arms like tree trunks. His species was famous throughout the galaxy for their strength. They could tear metal apart with their bare hands. He glanced down at Xiaoyan and made a sound that might have been a laugh. She said nothing. She just kept walking toward the main building. The academy was enormous. Towers of black stone rose into the orange sky. Training fields stretched for miles in every direction. Thousands of cadets from hundreds of species trained here every cycle. The best of the best. Future generals and admirals. Leaders who would command fleets and armies. And now, one human. Xiaoyan found her barracks assignment. Unit 7. She walked through the halls, passing groups of cadets who stopped talking when they saw her. Some stared openly. Others whispered to each other. She caught pieces of their conversations. Is that the Earthborn? So small. How did she even qualify? Humans come from a death world. Maybe that counts for something. Death world or not, look at her. She would break in half during basic combat drills. Xiaoyan kept her eyes forward and kept walking. Unit 7's barracks was a large, circular room with sleeping pods along the walls. When she entered, 5 other cadets were already there. They turned to look at her. The largest was a Vraxian. His name tag read Throck. He sat on a bench in the center of the room, taking up space like he owned it. Next to him was a Selenari, a tall being with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. The Selenari were known for their telepathic abilities. They could read minds and predict enemy movements before they happened. 2 Korvathi stood near the back. They were quadrupeds, walking on 4 powerful legs, with natural armor covering their bodies. In battle, they were nearly impossible to stop. The last cadet was another Selenari, younger and smaller than the first. Throck stood up slowly. He walked toward Xiaoyan, each step making the floor shake slightly. He stopped in front of her and looked down. "Way down. You are the human," he said. His voice was deep and rough. "Yes," Xiaoyan answered. "I have read about your species. Your planet is classified as a death world. High gravity, extreme weather, dangerous wildlife." He tilted his head. "And yet you are so small." "We come in different sizes," she said. Throck made that laughing sound again. "I also read about your military history. Tribal conflicts. Wars fought with primitive weapons. Explosives and projectiles." He shook his head. "The Vraxian Empire was conquering star systems while your people were still throwing rocks at each other." The other cadets watched. None of them spoke up. SEO-Y. Eon looked at Throck calmly. "Every species has to start somewhere." "True," Throck said. "But most species do not send their weakest members to compete with the strongest warriors in the galaxy." He turned and walked back to his bench. "Try not to slow us down, Earthborn. Unit 7 has a reputation to maintain." Xiaoyan walked to an empty sleeping pod in the corner. She set down her bag and began to unpack. Inside were training clothes worn soft from years of use, a small towel, basic supplies, and at the bottom, a small book with a leather cover. She placed it carefully under her pillow. The Kavathi named Brenax watched her from across the room. He seemed curious rather than hostile, but he said nothing. That night, the cadets received their schedules. Training would begin at dawn. Combat assessments, tactical simulations, physical conditioning. The program was designed to push them to their limits and beyond. Throck gathered the unit around him. "Listen carefully," he said. "I have trained for this my entire life. My father was a general. His father was a general. I will lead this unit to the top of the rankings. If anyone has a problem with that, speak now." No one spoke. Throck nodded. "Good. Now rest. Tomorrow we show this academy what real warriors look like." The cadets went to their pods. Lights dimmed. The barracks fell quiet, but Seo Yeon did not sleep. She waited until the breathing around her slowed and deepened. Then she slipped out of her pod silently and made her way outside. The academy courtyard was empty at this hour. The twin moons cast pale light across the stone ground. The air was cold. Co-Yeon began to move. She started with stretches. Simple ones at first, then deeper, longer holds. Her body was flexible in ways that did not seem possible for someone so compact. Then she began to run. Not fast, but steady. Around and around the courtyard. Her breathing stayed even. Her footsteps made almost no sound. After 30 minutes, she stopped running and began something else. Movements that looked like dancing but were not. Her hands cut through the air with precision. Her feet shifted in patterns that had been practiced 10,000 times. Every motion flowed into the next without pause. This was not academy training. This was something older. Something that had been passed down through generations on a small planet called Earth. High above, in a tower overlooking the courtyard, a figure watched. General Vos Harath was old, even by Selenari standards. He had commanded fleets for 3 centuries. He had seen countless species rise and fall. He had trained thousands of cadets and watched them become leaders or corpses. His aides stood beside him. "Sir, the human is not following the rest protocol." "I can see that," Harath said quietly. "Should we intervene?" Harath did not answer immediately. He watched the small figure below moving through the moonlight. There was something about the way she moved. Something that did not match her unremarkable assessment scores. "No," he finally said. "Do not intervene. But I want you to watch her. Document everything. Report to me directly." "Yes, sir." The aide paused. "May I ask why?" Harath's dark eyes reflected the moonlight. "Because I have read Earth's history. All of it. The parts they do not teach in standard xenobiology courses." He turned away from the window. "And I need to know if this one is what I think she is." Below, Seo Yeon finished her training as the first sun began to rise. She walked back to the barracks, slipped into her pod, and closed her eyes. When the wake-up signal sounded 1 hour later, she rose with the others, showing no sign of tiredness. Training day had begun. The first week of training was designed to break cadets down and build them back up. Every species was tested. Every weakness was exposed. The instructors showed no mercy and expected nothing less than perfection. Seo Yeon performed exactly in the middle of everything. In strength tests, the Vraxians dominated. Throck lifted weights that would crush most beings. He threw training dummies across the room like toys. His scores shattered previous records. Seo-Y Eon lifted what was expected for her body mass. Nothing more. Nothing less. In tactical simulations, the Selenari cadets excelled. They predicted enemy movements before they happened. Their telepathic abilities gave them an edge that no other species could match. The younger Selenari in Unit 7, named Chorus, scored in the top 5%. Seo-Y Eon scored acceptable. Her strategies were called functional but uninspired by the instructors. In defensive drills, the Kolvathi were unstoppable. Brenax and his companion took hit after hit without falling. Their natural armor absorbed damage that would have killed others instantly. Seo Yeon took hits and got back up. Again and again. The instructors noted her recovery time was good. But good was not exceptional. By the end of the first week, the rankings were posted. Unit 7 was in 4th place overall. Throck was furious. He blamed the low score on having dead weight in the unit. Everyone knew who he meant. The mockery grew worse each day. Cadets from other units started calling her the tourist. They said she was only here because the Galactic Council wanted to make humans feel included. A political decision, not a military one. She did not belong among real warriors. Soyeon heard all of it. She said nothing. During a group tactics exercise on the 5th day, Unit 7 was assigned to capture a simulated enemy position. Throck gathered everyone around a holographic map of the battlefield. "We hit them hard and fast," he said, pointing at the enemy base. Kolvathi in front to absorb fire. Selenari providing tactical support. Raxians breaking through the main gate. He looked at Seo Yeon. "You stay in the back and carry extra supplies. Try not to get in the way." Seo Yeon studied the map. "The main gate is heavily defended. If we attack there, we will lose at least 2 team members before breaking through." Throck's eyes narrowed. "What did you say?" "There is a drainage system on the east side," she continued, pointing to the map. "It is unguarded because most species cannot fit through it. But I can. If I go through and disable the power grid from inside, the main gate defenses will drop. You can walk in without losing anyone." The unit was silent. Throck stepped closer to her. "You want us to wait while you crawl through a pipe? What if you fail? What if you get stuck? We lose time. We lose points. We lose ranking." "I will not fail," Seo Yeon said simply. Throck laughed. It was not a friendly sound. "This is prey thinking, sneaking, hiding, crawling through dirt like a frightened animal." He turned to the others. "We are warriors. We do not hide. We attack." The unit followed his plan. They attacked the main gate. They lost 3 team members in the first 2 minutes. By the time they broke through, the enemy had regrouped and fortified a second position. The exercise ended in failure. Unit 7 dropped to 6th place in the rankings. Throck blamed the instructors for making the simulation unfair. That night, Brenax found Seo Yeon sitting alone in the courtyard. She was reading her small leather book by moonlight. "Your plan would have worked," he said, lowering himself onto his 4 legs beside her. She looked up. "Probably. Why did you not argue more? Push back against Throck?" Seo Yeon closed her book. What would that have changed? He had already decided. The others were already following him. Sometimes people need to fail before they are ready to listen. Brenax considered this. That is either very wise or very passive. "It is patient," she said. "On Earth, we have a saying. The river does not fight the rock. It flows around it year after year until the rock is smooth." "And how long does that take?" "As long as it takes." Brenax made a rumbling sound that might have been a laugh. "You are strange, human, I know." He left her alone with her book. The next day, word spread through the academy about human training methods. Someone had looked up Earth military preparation techniques and shared the information widely. The cadets found it hilarious. Humans trained by running long distances, sometimes for hours. They lifted heavy objects repeatedly until their muscles failed. They deprived themselves of sleep and food to build mental toughness. They climbed obstacles and crawled through mud and swam through cold water. They exhaust themselves before battle even begins, a Vraxian cadet joked in the dining hall. No wonder they needed weapons. They were too tired to fight properly. The laughter spread across the room. SEO-YEON ate her meal quietly and did not react. But in his tower, General Harath was not laughing. He sat at his desk surrounded by data screens. Each one showed different information about Earth, military history, survival statistics, endurance records, medical data about human physiology under extreme stress. His aide entered with a report. Sir, the human cadet's performance remains unremarkable. Middle scores across all categories. No signs of exceptional ability. Harath did not look up. Tell me something. What is the longest recorded time a Raxian has survived without water? The aide checked his datapad. Approximately 3 days, sir. And a Selenari? 2 days, perhaps slightly more. A human soldier once survived 17 days in a desert with no water supply. Harath finally looked up. They found him still walking, still trying to reach his destination. His body was failing, his organs were shutting down, but his mind refused to stop. The aide said nothing. That is what Earth trains into its people, Harath continued. Not strength, not speed, not tactical genius. Something else. Something that does not show up on assessment scores. He made a decision. Contact the Academy Council. I want to accelerate her evaluation. I want to see what she truly is. How do you propose to do that, sir? Harath pulled up the training schedule. Move the trial of Crucible forward. Put Unit 7 in the first group. Sir, they are not prepared. Most units train for weeks before attempting the Crucible. Exactly. Harath's dark eyes were unreadable. I do not want to see what she does when she is prepared. I want to see what she does when everything goes wrong. The announcement came that evening. A special early trial of Crucible had been scheduled for select units. Unit 7 was on the list. Throck gathered the unit immediately. He was excited. This was their chance to prove themselves, to climb back up the rankings, to show the Academy what real warriors could do. CO-YEON listened to his speech without expression. When it was over, she returned to her pod and opened her small book. Inside were handwritten notes, training techniques, survival strategies, wisdom passed down from her grandmother, who had survived things that most species could not imagine. She read one line over and over. When everything else fails, you still have one choice. You can keep going. She closed the book and prepared for tomorrow. The Crucible Arena was the Academy's most feared test. It was a massive dome that could change its environment at will. Forests became deserts. Mountains became oceans. The temperature could shift from boiling to freezing in minutes. And throughout it all, simulated enemies hunted the cadets without mercy. The rules were simple. Survive 8 hours. Complete the objectives. Do not give up. Failure meant immediate removal from the command track program. Everything they had worked for would be gone. Unit 7 stood at the entrance as the massive doors slowly opened. Inside, they could see a dense jungle stretching into darkness. Strange sounds echoed from within. The air that drifted out was hot and wet. Throck stepped forward. Stay close. Follow my orders. We move fast, hit the objectives hard, and finish this early. He looked back at So Yeon. You carry the emergency supplies. Stay behind the Korvathi. Do not engage unless necessary. She nodded and picked up the heavy supply pack. It weighed nearly half her body weight. She adjusted the straps and said nothing. The doors closed behind them. The trial had begun. For the first hour, everything went well. Throck led them through the jungle with confidence. His strength cleared paths through thick vegetation. The Selenari cadets detected enemies before they appeared. The Korvathi blocked attacks with their armored bodies. They completed the first 2 objectives without any problems. SEO-YEON stayed in the back. She carried the supplies without complaint. When enemies appeared, she moved out of the way. She did exactly what she was told. By hour 3, they had completed 4 of 7 objectives. Throck was pleased. He allowed a short rest break. At this pace, we will finish in 6 hours, he said. Top scores. Top rankings. This is what happens when you follow a real leader. The other cadets agreed. Even Brennack seemed impressed. So Yeon drank water slowly and watched the jungle around them. Something felt wrong, but she could not explain what. Then the arena changed. It happened without warning. One moment they were in a humid jungle. The next, the ground beneath them was snow. The trees vanished. The sky turned gray. The temperature dropped so fast that the moisture on their skin turned to ice instantly. They were now in a frozen wasteland. Wind screamed across an endless plain of white. Visibility dropped to almost nothing. The cold was not just uncomfortable. It was deadly. Throck roared against the wind. What is this? This is not standard protocol. In the observation room high above, General Harth watched calmly. His aide looked concerned. Sir, this environmental shift is far beyond normal parameters. The survival rate for this scenario is less than 30%. I know, Harth said. I designed it myself, sir. Continue observation. I want to see everything. Back in the arena, Unit 7 was falling apart. The Vraxians suffered first. Their species had evolved on warm volcanic planets. Their massive bodies lost heat rapidly in the freezing wind. Throck tried to push forward, but his movements became slow and clumsy. His gray skin was turning pale. The Selenari were not much better. Their telepathic abilities required concentration, and the cold was making it impossible to focus. Korz fell to his knees, clutching his head. Even the Korvathi struggled. Their natural armor, usually their greatest strength, was now conducting cold directly into their bodies. Brennax could barely move his legs. Only Sioyan seemed unaffected. She stood in the screaming wind, breathing steadily. Her body was cold, yes, but she had been cold before. On Earth, she had trained in mountains where the temperature dropped below freezing. She had swum in ice water until her body went numb. She had learned to control her breathing, to slow her heart rate, to keep her core temperature stable through sheer will. This was not comfortable, but it was survivable. We need to find shelter, she said, her voice cutting through the wind. Throck tried to respond, but his words came out slurred. His body was shutting down. Co-YEO and looked at the team. 3 cadets were already on the ground. The others were barely standing. If they stayed here, they would all fail. Or worse, she made a decision. Everyone listen to me, she said, her voice firm and clear. I know you do not trust me. I know you think I am weak. But right now, I am the only one who can function in this environment. If you want to survive, you need to do exactly what I say. Nobody laughed. Nobody argued. Throck looked at her through eyes that were struggling to focus. The cold had taken something from him. Not just his strength, but his certainty. For the first time since arriving at the academy, he did not know what to do. What? He managed to say, What do you suggest? Seo Yeon pointed into the white emptiness. There, approximately 200 meters. I saw a rock formation before visibility dropped. It will block the wind. We move now. Anyone who cannot walk will be carried. I cannot. Chorus started to say. Co-YEON pulled him up and put his arm over her shoulder. Yes, you can. You just need help. Brennax, take the other Selenari. Throck, stay close to me. Use my body as a windbreak. This is madness, one of the Korvathi said. We should stay here and wait for rescue. There is no rescue in the Crucible, Seo Yeon said. If we stay here, we die. If we move, we might live. Those are the only options. She started walking. Choose. One by one, they followed her. The walk to the rock formation was the longest 200 meters of their lives. The wind tried to push them back. The snow tried to swallow them. The cold tried to stop their hearts. Seo Yeon kept moving. When someone stumbled, she caught them. When someone fell, she helped them up. The supply pack on her back added weight that should have made the journey impossible. She did not drop it. They reached the rocks. It was not perfect shelter, but it blocked the worst of the wind. The cadets collapsed against the stone, gasping and shivering. Seo Yeon did not rest. She opened the supply pack and pulled out thermal blankets. She wrapped them around the coldest cadets first. She found emergency ration bars and handed them out. Eat, she ordered. Your bodies need fuel to generate heat. Small bites. Chew slowly. Thrak stared at her. His massive hands were shaking as he tried to hold the ration bar. How? He whispered. How are you still standing? Seo Yeon looked at him. For a moment, something flickered in her eyes. Not pride. Not anger. Something older. Something that had been forged in thousands of years of human survival. Because I have to be, she said simply. Now eat. We still have 5 hours left. And I promise you, this is going to get worse before it gets better. Above them, the gray sky began to darken. In the distance, they could hear new sounds. The simulated enemies were coming. And Unit 7 was in no condition to fight. Yeon pulled a small blade from her belt and faced the darkness. Stay behind me, she said quietly. Rest while you can. When they come, I will hold the line. Thrak wanted to argue. He wanted to say that he was the leader, that she should follow his orders, that a Vraxian warrior did not hide behind a human, but the words would not come. Because somewhere deep inside, in a place he did not want to acknowledge, he was beginning to understand something. He had underestimated her. They all had, and he was only now beginning to realize how badly. The enemies came in waves. Simulated combat drones emerged from the blizzard, their weapons humming with training charges. A hit would not kill, but it would register as a casualty. Too many hits, and you were out of the trial. Yeon moved before anyone else could react. She was fast. Not fast in the way the instructors had measured during assessment week. This was something different. Something she had been hiding. The first drone came at her from the left. She ducked under its strike, spun, and disabled it with a precise hit to its power core. The second drone attacked from behind. She seemed to sense it coming without looking. Her blade found its weak point before it could fire. 3 more drones appeared. She took them down in 4 seconds. The cadets watched with wide eyes. This was not the same human who had scored acceptable in combat drills. This was something else entirely. How is she doing that? Corey's whispered. Bren shook his head slowly. I do not know. But I am very glad she's on our side. The wave ended. Seo Yeon stood over the disabled drones, breathing hard but steady. Snow gathered on her shoulders. Blood dripped from a cut on her arm where a drone had grazed her. She did not seem to notice the wound. That was the first wave, she said, turning back to the group. The arena will send more. We cannot stay here. We need to move toward the remaining objectives while you recover. Thrak pushed himself to his feet. His body was still sluggish from the cold, but his pride demanded he try. I can fight. Give me a moment and I will. No. Seo Yeon's voice was firm. Your core temperature is too low. If you push yourself now, your heart could fail. I have seen it happen. You have seen it happen, Thrak repeated. Seo Yeon met his eyes. Where I come from, the cold has killed more people than any war. I know what it does to a body. I know how fast it can take you. She pointed at him. You are not weak. You are adapted for a different environment. Right now, that adaptation is working against you. Let me carry this fight until you recover. It was not a request. It was not a suggestion. It was a statement of fact, delivered without arrogance or cruelty. Throck swallowed his pride. Fine. What do you need us to do? Brenax, keep the wounded moving. Body heat from movement will help everyone warm up. Throck, you are my shield now. Stay close to me. Your mass will block wind and incoming fire. Chorus, I need you to try to sense the next wave before it hits. Even limited range is better than nothing. They stared at her. Now, she added. They moved. For the next 2 hours, Unit 7 crossed the frozen wasteland with HFY leading the way. She set a pace that seemed slow, but never stopped. When cadets wanted to rest, she refused. When they complained about the cold, she ignored them. Movement is warmth, she repeated again and again. Your body is lying to you. It wants to stop. It wants to sleep. If you listen to it, you will die. So do not listen. Listen to me instead. It was brutal. It was exhausting. It was completely unlike any leadership style they had been taught at the academy, and it was working. The remaining objectives required combat. Enemy positions that needed to be cleared. Targets that needed to be destroyed. Under normal circumstances, Throck would have led the charge. He was the strongest. He was the most aggressive. But these were not normal circumstances. I will handle the combat alone, So Yoon said as they approached the first target. The rest of you provide cover and watch for reinforcements. Alone? Brenax asked. There are at least 8 enemies in that position. I know. She moved before anyone could argue. What happened next would be talked about in Unit 7 for years to come. Seo Yoon did not fight like the Academy taught. She did not use proper form or standard techniques. She fought like something wild and ancient. Like a creature that had evolved on a world where everything was trying to kill it. She used the environment. Snow in enemy sensors. Ice under enemy feet. She used her small size to go where larger fighters could not reach. She took hits that should have slowed her down and kept moving like she did not feel them. 8 enemies. 45 seconds. All disabled. She emerged from the position bleeding from 3 new wounds. Her breathing was ragged now, but her eyes were still sharp. Objective complete, she said. 2 more to go. In the observation room, General Hareth leaned forward in his chair. Sir, his aide said, voice shaking slightly. Her performance metrics are showing impossible numbers. Her reaction speed, her pain tolerance, her endurance. These readings must be errors. They are not errors, Hareth said quietly. Then what is she? Hareth was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was heavy with something that might have been respect, or fear, or both. She is what humans become when they stop performing and start surviving. This is what Earth creates. This is what that death world breeds into its children. He pulled up more data on his screen, and she has been hiding it since she arrived. Why would she hide such ability? Because she was not ready to show it, because she was watching, learning, waiting. Hareth's eyes never left the screens. Humans are patient predators. They do not attack until they understand their prey completely. We thought we were evaluating her. She was evaluating us. Back in the arena, Unit 7 pushed toward the final objective. The cadets were warming up slowly, their bodies adapting to the constant movement. Throck could feel his strength returning. Brenax was moving more smoothly. Even Chorus managed to sense an enemy wave early enough to warn the group. But they all knew the truth. They had survived because of the human. The final objective was the hardest. A fortified position at the top of an ice cliff. The only approach was a narrow path that left them exposed to enemy fire. Seo Yan studied the position. Her wounds had stopped bleeding, but she was clearly exhausted. Her body had been pushed far beyond normal limits. "I cannot clear that alone," she admitted. "I need help." Throck stepped forward. His body still hurt. The cold still clawed at his bones, but he was a Vraxian warrior, and Vraxian warriors did not let others fight alone. "Tell me what to do," he said. Dao Jiao looked at him. Something passed between them. Not friendship exactly, but understanding. "I will draw their fire," she said. "When they focus on me, you hit them from the side. Brenax, cover our retreat if this goes wrong. Coris, call out enemy positions as you sense them. And if you fall..." Frocast.seo-yeon smiled. It was small and tired, but real. "Then you finally get to lead again." She did not wait for a response. She started up the path. The final assault took 4 minutes and 12 seconds. When it was over, every enemy was down. The objective was complete, and Unit 7 crossed the finish line with time to spare. Medics rushed in as the arena doors opened. They surrounded the alien cadets, checking vital signs and treating cold exposure. SEO-YEON stood apart from the group. She was covered in blood, most of it her own. Her body swayed slightly, but she refused to sit. Throck approached her slowly. His massive form blocked the wind that still howled through the open doors. "You saved us," he said. "All of us." Seo Yeon shook her head. "We saved each other, at the end." "No." Throck's voice was rough. "I mocked you. I dismissed you. I called you weak." He paused, struggling with words that did not come naturally to his species. "I was wrong." Seo Yeon met his eyes. "Yes, you were." She did not say it with anger, just truth. "But you learned. That is what matters." A medic finally reached her and insisted she sit down. As they treated her wounds, she looked up at the observation tower. She could not see General Harth, but somehow she knew he was watching. She had shown them what she was. Now she would have to live with the consequences. 2 days after the trial, the medical wing was still busy. The alien cadets were recovering slowly. Cold exposure had done real damage to their bodies. The Vraxians needed heat therapy. The Selenari required medication to stabilize their neural pathways. The Kovathi were being treated for frostbite in their joints. Seo Yeon's bed was empty. She had checked herself out after one night, despite the doctor's protests. Her wounds were already healing. Human tissue, they discovered, was remarkably stubborn. It did not repair quickly, but it repaired constantly, like a machine that never stopped working. Word spread through the academy about what had happened in the Crucible. The stories grew with each telling. The human had carried 3 cadets through a blizzard. She had fought off 50 enemies single-handed. She had refused to stop even with bones broken and blood freezing on her skin. The actual truth was impressive enough without exaggeration. But the academy loved legends. Throck lay in his medical bed, staring at the ceiling. He had not spoken much since returning from the trial. His body was healing, but something else had broken inside him. Something that had nothing to do with the cold. His certainty. He had been so sure of everything. His strength. His leadership. His destiny to become a great general like his father and grandfather. He had looked at the small human and seen nothing but weakness. Now he did not know what to think. On the 3rd day, Seo Yeon came to visit him. She walked into the medical wing quietly and sat in a chair beside his bed. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Finally, Throck broke the silence. "How did you do it?" Seo Yeon tilted her head. "Do what?" "All of it. The cold. The fighting. Carrying us when your own body was failing." His voice was rough with frustration. "I am 3 times your size. I have trained since childhood. I should have been the one protecting the unit. Instead, I was helpless. And you He could not finish .co-YEOMN was quiet for a moment. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out her small leather book. She held it carefully, like it was something precious. My grandmother gave me this before I left Earth, she said. Insider stories, lessons, things that my family has learned over many generations. She opened it to a worn page. This one is from my great-grandmother. During a war on Earth, she walked 40 miles through frozen mountains. She carried 2 children on her back. Her own children. Enemy soldiers were hunting them. If she stopped, they would all die. Throck listened. She walked for 3 days. No food, almost no water. Her feet bled through her shoes. Her arms went numb from holding the children. But she did not stop. Seo Yeon closed the book. When rescuers found her, she had frostbite so severe that she lost 3 toes. The doctor said she should have collapsed after the first day. They asked her how she kept going. What did she say? She said stopping was not an option. So she did not stop. Seo Yeon put the book away. That is what humans are taught from birth. The body wants to quit. The mind wants to surrender. But you can choose to ignore both. You can keep moving through pain, through exhaustion, through everything that tells you it is impossible. Because the only real failure is giving up. Throck stared at her. That sounds like madness. Maybe it is. Seo Yeon shrugged. But it kept me alive in that arena. It kept all of us alive. Silence fell between them again. But it was a different kind of silence now. Something had shifted. I was wrong about you, Throck said finally. I said terrible things. I treated you like you did not belong here. You did. And you still saved my life. Seo Yeon met his eyes. Being right does not mean being cruel. You hurt me with your words. But letting you die would not have fixed that. It would have just made me someone I do not want to be. Throck had no response to that. On his world, strength was everything. Weakness was punished. Mercy was for the soft. But this human had shown him something different. Strength could include compassion. Power could serve others instead of dominating them. It was a difficult thing to accept. But he was starting to understand. That evening, Seo Yeon received a summons to General Hareth's office. She walked through the academy's grand halls alone. Other cadets watched her pass. Some whispered. Some simply stared. She was no longer the tourist. She was something else now. Something they did not have a name for yet. General Hareth's office was at the top of the central tower. The walls were lined with screens showing data from across the galaxy. Maps of star systems, troop movements, threat assessments. This was where real military decisions were made. Hareth stood by a window, looking out at the academy grounds below. He did not turn when she entered. Lieutenant Seo Yeon, he said. Please sit, she sat. I have been reading about your planet, he continued. Earth, a death world by any classification. High gravity. Extreme weather patterns. Predators in every ecosystem. Diseases that mutate faster than medicine can adapt. He finally turned to face her. Your species should not exist. The conditions on your world should have killed you long before you achieved space travel. And yet, here I am, she said. Yes, here you are. Hareth walked slowly to his desk and sat across from her. His dark eyes studied her face. I watched your performance in the Crucible. I have also reviewed your assessment scores from the first week. They do not match. Sayon said nothing. You deliberately performed below your capability, he continued. You hid what you could do. Why? She considered the question carefully before answering. You did not ask me to survive. You asked me to perform. They are different things. Explain. Performance is showing what you can do on command. Survival is doing whatever is necessary to live. She paused. On Earth, we learn early that showing everything you have makes you a target. Better to seem ordinary until the moment when ordinary is not enough. Harath leaned back in his chair. Your species frightens the Galactic Council. Did you know that? I suspected. They have read Earth history. The wars that killed millions. The weapons that could destroy entire cities in seconds. The soldiers who kept fighting with half their bodies destroyed. He shook his head slowly. Most species see war as a necessary evil. Humans seem to see it as something else. Seoyin's expression did not change. We see it as a last resort. But when all other options fail, we do not hesitate. We do not hold back. We fight with everything we have until the fight is over. Even when winning is impossible? Especially then. Because sometimes the fight itself matters more than the outcome. Harath was silent for a long moment. Then he pulled up a holographic display. It showed a star system far from the Academy. A mining colony on a small planet. Brenneth 7, he said. 3 days ago, it was attacked by raiders from the Harrow Syndicate. They have taken hostages, including 32 children from the colony school. Seoyin's expression finally changed. Her jaw tightened. Her eyes grew cold. Why are you telling me this? She asked. Because the Academy is deploying a relief force. Senior cadets will support the main military response. He met her eyes. I'm adding Unit 7 to that force. We are not senior cadets. No. But you have something the senior cadets do not. He paused. You have already shown me what you become when lives are at stake. Now I need to see what you become when children are at stake. Seoyin stood. Her wounds still ached. Her body still needed rest. But none of that mattered anymore. When do we leave? She asked. Tonight. Brief your unit. And Lieutenant, he hesitated. Be careful. The Harrow Syndicate does not take prisoners for ransom. They take them for leverage. And when leverage fails, they take lives. Seoyin nodded once and left the office as the door closed behind her. Harath turned back to his window. His aide stepped out of the shadows. Sir, is this wise? Sending first-year cadets into a hostage situation? Harath did not answer immediately. He watched the small human figure walking across the courtyard below. Even from this distance, he could see the change in her posture, the set of her shoulders, the purpose in her stride. Wise? He said finally. Probably not. But I have a feeling that those raiders have no idea what is coming for them. He paused. And I want to see what happens when a human learns that children are in danger. His aide shivered, though the room was warm. The transport ship entered Brenneth 7's atmosphere. Just before dawn dawned through the viewport, Seoyin could see smoke rising from the colony below. The raiders had done significant damage during their initial attack. Buildings were burning. Power grids were down. The mining facility that provided the colony's income had been completely destroyed, but the civilian center was intact. That was where the hostages were being held. Unit 7, gathered in the ship's briefing room with the other cadet units and the senior military officers leading the operation. A holographic map of the colony floated above the central table. The situation is critical, the commanding officer explained. He was a tall Kolvathi general named Drasic. His armor bore the marks of dozens of campaigns. The Harrow Syndicate has approximately 40 fighters holding the civilian center. They have 107 hostages, including 32 children. The room was silent. Our standard approach for hostage situations is containment and negotiation, Drasic continued. We surround the building, cut off supplies, and wait them out. Eventually, they will agree to terms. With respect, General, another officer spoke up, The Harrow Syndicate has never negotiated in good faith. When they feel cornered, they execute hostages to make a point. I am aware of their history, Drassic said coldly. But we cannot risk a direct assault. The casualties would be unacceptable. Seo Yan stood in the back of the room, listening. Her hands were clasped behind her back. Her face showed nothing, but inside, something was building. After the briefing, Unit 7 returned to their quarters on the ship. Throck was already planning how they would support the siege. We will take the eastern perimeter, he said, studying the map on his datapad. Hold position, watch for escape attempts, and wait for orders. And the children? Bernax asked quietly. Throck's jaw tightened. We follow orders. The generals know what they are doing. Seo Yan did not say anything. She sat apart from the group, reviewing the intelligence files on her own datapad. Floor plans of the civilian center. Patrol patterns of the raiders. Entry points. Ventilation systems. She found what she was looking for. There was a maintenance access point on the west side of the building. A narrow shaft that connected to the internal air circulation system. Too small for most species, but not too small for a human. That night, she went to see General Hareth. He was in the command center, monitoring communications from the siege line. He did not seem surprised when she appeared. Lieutenant Yu, he said, you should be resting. I found a way in, she said without preamble. A maintenance shaft on the west side. I can reach it undetected and enter the building through the ventilation system. Hareth studied her face. And then what? I disable their communications. Take out their power. Create confusion. When they are distracted, the assault team moves in. That plan puts you alone inside a building full of armed raiders. Yes, the survival probability is extremely low. I know. Hareth turned fully to face her. Why are you willing to take this risk? This is not even your planet. These are not your people. Esioian's expression did not change, but something shifted in her eyes. Something fierce and ancient. They are children, she said. They are scared and alone and waiting for someone to save them. It does not matter what planet they come from or what species they are. Children are children. And where I come from, we do not leave children behind. Hareth was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. I will speak to General Drassic. But even if he agrees, I cannot send you alone. I work better alone. Perhaps. But I am not asking you to die gloriously. I am asking you to succeed. He pulled up the map again. Show me your entry point. Show me your plan. And then we will decide how to give you the best chance of bringing those children home. 1 hour later, Seo Yan stood at the western edge of the siege perimeter. She wore light armor and carried minimal weapons. Speed and silence were more important than firepower. Throck and the rest of Unit 7 had been briefed. They were not happy about being left behind, but they understood their role. When Seo Yan made her move, they would be part of the assault team ready to breach the main entrance. Are you sure about this? Throck asked. He stood beside her in the darkness, his massive form blocking the wind. No, she admitted. But I am sure that waiting will get those children killed. Sometimes you have to act even when you are not sure. Throck nodded slowly. When this is over, we are going to have a long conversation about human decision-making. Looking forward to it. She started moving toward the building. The siege had pulled most attention to the main entrances. The western maintenance area was neglected. Just as Seo Yan had hoped, she reached the access point without being detected. The shaft was tight, even for her. She had to exhale fully to squeeze through the opening. But once inside, she moved quickly and quietly through the ventilation system. The raiders had set up their command post on the second floor. She could hear them through the vents. Their voices were rough and confident. They thought they had control of the situation. They thought the military would wait them out and eventually give them what they wanted. They had no idea what was coming. SEO-Y, EON, dropped silently into a storage room on the first floor. She took a moment to orient herself, then began moving through the shadows. The first raider she encountered was guarding a supply closet. He never saw her coming. One moment he was standing at his post. The next, he was unconscious on the floor. She moved on. The second raider was patrolling a hallway. She waited until he turned a corner, then struck from behind. Silent, precise, effective. The third raider was more alert. He heard something and spun around, weapon raised. But Seo Yeon was already inside his guard. She disabled his weapon arm, covered his mouth to prevent a scream, and put him down without a sound. 3 down. 37 to go. She reached the power distribution room in 6 minutes. 2 raiders were inside, playing a card game instead of watching their screens. She took them both down in 3 seconds. The building's lights went out. Emergency lighting flickered on a moment later, but the damage was done. Communications were scrambled. Security systems were offline. The raiders were suddenly blind. Chaos erupted throughout the building. SEO-Y, EON kept moving. Her eyes had adjusted to the darkness quickly. Human night vision was not perfect, but it was better than most species realized. She headed for the room where the children were being held. The intelligence had indicated 3rd floor, eastern corner, the most protected position in the building. The stairs were guarded. She took an alternate route, climbing through the ventilation system again and dropping into a bathroom on the 3rd floor. She was close now. So close, but the raider leader was not stupid. When the power went out, he had gathered his best fighters around the hostages. Whatever was happening, he was not going to lose his leverage. SEO-YEON paused outside the door to the hostage room. She could hear voices inside. Frightened children crying. Raiders barking orders, and then she heard something else. "Send a message," the raider leader said. "Tell them that for every minute they do not restore power, I will send out a child." In pieces. Seo Yeon's blood went cold. She did not have time to wait for the assault team. She did not have time for careful planning or strategic positioning. She had to move now. Outside, General Hareth listened to the raider's transmission. His face was pale. "Sir," his aide said urgently, "we need to accelerate the assault. He's going to start executing hostages." "I know." Hareth turned to the tactical display. Unit 7 was in position at the main entrance. The assault team was ready, but they were 60 seconds away from breach point. 60 seconds too long. Then something happened on the thermal scanners. A single small heat signature was moving toward the hostage room. "Moving fast. Is that—" the aide started. "Yes," Hareth said quietly. He watched the screen. His hands were shaking slightly. "It is her." He keyed his communicator and spoke to all units. "All teams, prepare for immediate breach. The situation is about to change." Throck heard the message and tightened his grip on his weapon. He did not know exactly what was about to happen, but he knew it would be unlike anything they had seen before. The door to the hostage room exploded inward. Seo Yeon came through it like a storm. The raiders were caught off guard. They had been expecting an assault from outside, not from within their own building. They had been expecting heavy military forces with armor and overwhelming firepower. Instead, they got one small human moving faster than their eyes could track. She disabled the first 2 raiders before anyone could react. A strike to the throat. A blow to the knee. They went down gasping, weapons clattering to the floor. The children screamed. They were huddled in the corner of the room, surrounded by armed guards. 32 young faces filled with terror. Seo Yeon's eyes found them for just a moment. She saw their fear. She saw their hope. She saw the possibility of what would happen if she failed. She did not plan to fail. The raider leader was a scarred Corvethi named Vrak. He had been in this business for decades. He had killed dozens of species in dozens of situations with dozens of methods. He had seen soldiers and mercenaries and assassins. He had never seen anything like this. "Stop her!" He roared at his fighters. They tried. They really did. A raider lunged at her with a blade. She sidestepped, grabbed his arm, and used his momentum to throw him into two others. They went down in a tangle of limbs. Another raider opened fire. She was already moving before he pulled the trigger. The shots hit empty air. She closed the distance and put him down with a combination of strikes that should not have been possible for someone her size. Two more came at her from opposite sides. She dropped low, swept one's legs, rose with an elbow to the other's chin. They fell. It was not fighting. It was something closer to dancing. Every movement flowed into the next. Every action served a purpose. There was no wasted energy, no unnecessary motion. Just efficiency. Just survival. Just doing whatever was necessary to protect those children. More raiders poured into the room. Vrak was screaming orders, but his fighters were panicking. They could not understand how one person was doing this. They could not process what they were seeing. Co Yeon took a hit to her shoulder. A blade cut her arm. Something struck her leg hard enough to make her stumble. But she did not stop. She absorbed the damage and kept moving. In the command center, General Harath watched the thermal feed with wide eyes. His aide stood frozen beside him. "Sir, her vitals are showing severe trauma. Multiple injuries. She should not be able to continue at this level of performance." "Should not," Harath repeated quietly. "But she is." On the screen, the small heat signature continued to move through the larger ones. One by one, the raider signatures were dropping. "Sir," another officer said, "the assault team is 30 seconds from breach." "Tell them to hurry," Harath said. "She cannot sustain this forever." The aide looked at the screen, then at Harath. "Sir, is there anything we can do from here?" Harath shook his head slowly. His voice was barely above a whisper. "Pray. Pray for those fools who thought they could threaten children in front of a human." Back in the hostage room, Co Yin had cut the raider numbers in half. Bodies littered the floor around her. Most were unconscious. Some were groaning in pain. None were getting back up, but Vrak still had his best fighters around the children, and he had a weapon pressed against a small girl's head. "Stop!" He screamed. "Stop right now, or I swear I will end her." Co Yeon froze. The room went silent, except for the children's whimpers and Vrak's heavy breathing. The remaining raiders, 8 of them, kept their weapons trained on her. Vrak pulled the trembling child closer. "I do not know what you are. I do not care. But if you take one more step, this child dies. And then I will kill another. And another. Until you back off." Co Yeon stood in the center of the room. Blood dripped from her wounds onto the floor. Her chest rose and fell with rapid breaths. Her body was screaming at her to stop, to rest, to give up. She did not give up. Instead, she let her weapon drop from her hand. It clattered to the floor. Vrak laughed. It was an ugly sound. "Smart choice. Now get on your knees." She did not get on her knees. She started walking forward, slowly, calmly, hands empty and visible. "What are you doing?" Vrak demanded. "I said stop." She kept walking. "I will kill her." "I am not bluffing." She kept walking. Vrak's finger tightened on the trigger. "Are you insane? Do you want to watch this child die?" Co Yeon spoke for the first time since entering the room. Her voice was quiet but carried to every corner. "No, But I know something you do not. What is that? You have already lost. She took another step. The moment you threatened those children, you lost. Because now you are not fighting soldiers or mercenaries or people following orders. You are fighting something else. Another step. Rack's weapon hand was shaking now. What are you? He whispered. I am human. And where I come from, we have done terrible things to each other. Wars, cruelty, violence that would make you sick to hear about. She was close now. Close enough to see the fear in his eyes. But there is one line we do not cross. One thing that even the worst of us will fight to prevent. She stopped. The barrel of his weapon was inches from her face. We do not hurt children. And we do not let others hurt them either. Rack screamed and pulled the trigger. Nothing happened. In the chaos of the fight, he had emptied his weapon without realizing it. SEO-Y, EON moved. She grabbed the child and pulled her away from Rack in one smooth motion. Then she turned to the other children and raised her hand. Close your eyes, she said gently. Close your eyes and do not open them until I say it is. Okay. 32 children closed their eyes. 32 children did not see what happened. Next. What happened next took 3 seconds. When the children opened their eyes, every raider in the room was on the floor. None of them were moving. The small human woman stood over them, swaying slightly, covered in blood that was mostly her own. She looked at the children and managed a small smile. It is okay now, she said. You are safe. The doors burst open as the assault team finally arrived. Throck was first through, weapon raised, ready for a fight. He found no fight left. He found Seo Yan standing in the middle of a room full of defeated enemies, surrounded by children who were now running to her, clinging to her. Crying with relief, she knelt down to their level, wincing from her wounds, and hugged as many of them as she could reach. It is okay, she kept saying. It is okay. You are safe now. No one is going to hurt you. Throck lowered his weapon slowly. He had trained for combat his entire life. He had imagined countless battles, countless victories, countless moments of glory. He had never imagined this. A human, barely able to stand, refusing to let go of the children she had just saved. Brenax entered behind him. The Kovathi stopped dead at the scene before him. How? He started. I do not know, Throck said quietly. I do not think I want to know. General Harath arrived minutes later with the medical team. He took in the scene with experienced eyes, the fallen raiders, the protected children, the wounded humans still refusing to let go of the smallest ones. His aide stood beside him. Sir, I have never seen anything like this. No, Harath agreed. And I hope you never see it again. He paused. This is what humans are capable of. This is what they become when you threaten the innocent. They do not calculate odds. They do not weigh risks and benefits. They simply act. It should not be possible, the aide said. And yet it is. Harath walked forward slowly. Lieutenant Yu, the children are safe. Medical teams are here. You can let go now. Seo Yan looked up at him. Her eyes were unfocused. Her body was trembling with exhaustion. But she shook her head. Not yet, she whispered. Not until they are all with their parents. I promised them they would be safe. I am keeping that promise. Harath nodded. He understood. He would wait. The medical transport arrived at the academy. 3 days later, Seo Yin had finally allowed herself to be treated, after every single child from the hostage situation was reunited with their families. She had stayed awake for 37 hours, refusing to rest until the last parent held the last child in their arms. Then she collapsed. The doctors counted 7 serious wounds. Blade cuts on her arms and torso, blunt force trauma to her ribs, a deep puncture in her left shoulder. Burns on her hands from disabling the power systems. Any one of those injuries would have stopped most beings. Combined, they should have killed her. But human bodies did not operate by normal rules. They broke down. Yes. They suffered. Yes. But they also kept repairing themselves with a stubbornness that bordered on insanity. Even as the doctors treated her, they watched her wounds slowly closing, her tissue regenerating, her body refusing to give up. Inefficient, one doctor muttered, reviewing her scans. The human healing process is incredibly inefficient. It wastes enormous resources. But it never stops, another doctor said quietly, even when it should. Even when the damage is too severe. It just keeps trying. Seo Yan slept for 2 days straight. When she finally woke, she found her room full of drawings. The children from Brenna 7 had sent them. Pictures of the colony. Pictures of their families. Pictures of a small woman with black hair defeating monsters. The Guardian, they called her. The colonists had chosen the name. It spread across the communication networks within hours. She looked at the drawings for a long time. Then she put them carefully in her bag, next to her grandmother's book. Throck came to visit on the third day. He stood in the doorway awkwardly, his massive frame too large for the medical room. "May I come in?" he asked. She nodded. He walked in slowly and sat in a chair that creaked under his weight. For a while, neither of them spoke. "I spoke with the children," he finally said. "Before they left, they could not stop talking about you. About the human who came through the door like a spirit of protection. Who stood between them and the monsters. Who told them to close their eyes so they would not be afraid." Seo Yan looked at her hands. They were still bandaged. "They should not have had to see any of it," she said. "They should have been safe in their school, learning and playing. They should not have known what fear feels like. But they do know. And they also know that someone cared enough to save them." Throck hesitated. "That will stay with them forever. Long after the fear fades, they will remember you." Seo Yan did not respond to that. She did not know how. "I have been thinking," Throck continued, "about everything that happened since you arrived. How I treated you, what I said, what I believed." He shook his head. "On my world, strength is everything. We measure value by how hard you can hit, how much you can lift, how loud you can roar. I looked at you and saw none of those things. So I assumed you were worthless, and now? Now, I understand that strength has many forms. The strength to endure. The strength to protect. The strength to keep fighting when your body is broken and every reasonable thought tells you to stop." He met her eyes. "You are the strongest person I have ever met. And I was a fool not to see it from the beginning." Seo Yin was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You were not a fool. You were just wrong. There is a difference." "What is the difference?" "A fool cannot learn. Someone who is wrong can." She almost smiled. "You have learned. That matters more than mistakes." Throck nodded slowly. He seemed to be processing something difficult. Then he stood and extended his massive hand toward her. "I would be honored to serve beside you, Lieutenant Yu. In whatever battles lie ahead." She took his hand. Her grip was surprisingly firm for someone so small. "I would be honored as well, Cadet Throck." The graduation ceremony took place 6 weeks later. Unit 7 stood with the other first-year cadets in the Academy's Great Hall. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy gathered to watch. It was a tradition that stretched back centuries. General Hurth stood at the podium. His dark eyes swept across the assembled cadets, lingering for just a moment on Seo Yan. "Today, we honor those who have proven themselves worthy of the uniform they wear," he began. "But before we proceed with the standard ceremony, I want to tell you a story." The hall fell silent. There is a small planet at the edge of mapped space. It is not impressive by galactic standards. Its technology is young. Its people are fragile. Its history is full of conflict and struggle. Harath paused. This planet is called Earth, and the beings who evolved there are called humans. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. I have studied many species in my long career. I have commanded soldiers from every corner of the galaxy. I thought I understood what made warriors great. Strength, speed, intelligence, tactical brilliance. He shook his head slowly. I was wrong. The murmurs grew louder. Humans have none of these things in exceptional measure. By our standards, they are soft, slow, easily broken. Their planet should have killed them long before they reached the stars, and yet they survived. They did more than survive. They thrived. He stepped out from behind the podium and walked toward the assembled cadets. I have seen what humans are capable of. I have watched a single human cadet take on impossible odds to protect children she had never met. I have watched her fight through wounds that would have killed any other species. I have watched her refuse to stop, refuse to give up, refuse to surrender, long after any reasonable being would have accepted defeat. He stopped in front of Seo Yan. The entire hall watched. When humans fight for themselves, they are formidable. But when they fight for others, for children, for innocents, for those who cannot defend themselves, they become something else entirely. They become unstoppable. Not because they are stronger, or faster, or smarter, but because they simply will not quit. No matter the cost, no matter the pain, no matter how impossible the odds. He reached into his uniform and pulled out a medal. It was small and silver, shaped like a shield. The Sentinel's mark, he said. It is the highest honor this academy can bestow upon a cadet. It has not been awarded in 23 years. It is given to those who demonstrate extraordinary courage in the defense of the innocent. He pinned the medal on Seo Yan's uniform. Lieutenant Yu Seo Yan, you have earned this. The hall erupted in applause. Seo Yan stood straight and still. She did not smile. She did not celebrate. She simply accepted the honor with the same quiet dignity that defined everything she did. Later, when the ceremony was over and the crowds had dispersed, she found herself on the academy roof, looking up at the stars. Brenax found her there. He settled onto his 4 legs beside her and followed her gaze upward. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "Home," she said. "All the people who fought so I could be here. My grandmother who walked through mountains. My ancestors who survived wars and famines and disasters that should have wiped them out. Everyone who struggled so that someday their children could reach the stars." Brenax was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Your species is terrifying, you know?" Iseo Yan finally smiled. It was small and soft and real. "We are not terrifying," she said. "We are just human, and we have been through worse than this. We always have. We always will. How do you know?" She touched the medal on her chest. Then she touched the small leather book in her pocket. "Because that is what we do. We fall down. We get hurt. We face impossible odds and terrible losses. And then we get back up and keep going." She looked at him. "Not because we are special. Not because we are chosen, but because giving up is not in our nature. It never has been." Brenax considered this. "And if one day you face something you cannot overcome, something that finally breaks you?" Seo Ying looked back at the stars. Somewhere out there, 32 children were sleeping safely in their beds, no longer afraid of the dark. "Then we will break," she said simply. "And then we will put ourselves back together and try again. That is what being human means. It is not about being unbreakable. It is about being unfinished, always growing, always learning, always reaching for something better." The twin moons rose over the academy. The night was peaceful. And somewhere in the galaxy, a small planet called Earth continued to spin, breeding generation after generation of beings who refused to give up. Not because they could not fail, but because they chose not to. And that made all the difference.